Welcome to the channel, and today we'll be listing Eminem's most relevant albums, but rather than opinions and critical reception, his albums will be ranked based on market relevance over time. Eminem probably makes your favorite rapper's top 5 list of best rappers of all time, but today Eminem will compete with himself and will focus on his solo projects and rank them based on a totally different criteria than what you're used to. His albums will be ranked based on how long the market deemed it relevant over time after the hype is down. Since we're ranking his albums based on market relevance over time, Revival and Kamikaze don't qualify in this ranking. Kamikaze, for instance, has been out for 10 weeks and has charted on the Billboard 200 for 10 weeks. Revival, on the other hand, hasn't been out for up to 52 weeks or 1 year, has charted for 31 weeks, while all the other albums we'll be ranking have been out for at least 5 years, which is fair game. And before you ask about Infinite, Infinite comes in at dead last and charted for a total of 0 weeks on the Billboard 200. Before we get started, remember to subscribe if you're new to the channel and turn on notifications. Encore released in 2004, and despite posting grand numbers and selling over 16 million copies worldwide, it couldn't match the staying power of Eminem's previous albums, and in the United States, charted for a total of 54 weeks on the Billboard 200. With Kamikaze and Revival out of the race, Encore is Eminem's least relevant major label album, and 54 weeks is still great at a year and 2 weeks cumulatively spent on the chart. But this is Eminem, and by his standards, the US market deemed this his least relevant major album ever. But will Revival take its place in a couple of years? Tell us in the comment section below. Relapse released in 2009 and didn't open with numbers as high as Encore, and in fact sold much less at over 7 million copies sold globally compared to Encore's over 16 million. Nonetheless, Relapse was able to remain relevant on the market for nearly double the time of Encore and charted in 90 weeks on the Billboard 200. Before Revival released, Encore and Relapse were often found at the bottom of the list when Eminem's albums were ranked. But which album do you consider to be the better album? The Slim Shady LP, Eminem's first major label album, released in 1999 and despite failing to reach number 1 in the United States, ended up selling over 12 million copies worldwide years later. In terms of the longevity of the album, the Slim Shady LP has now spent a cumulative of 104 weeks on the US Billboard 200. So pretty much for the amount of weeks that make up 2 years, the Slim Shady LP has spent on the chart. For many fans, the Slim Shady LP ranks among his top 3 albums, but based on longevity, it misses the top 5. The Marshall Mathers LP posted Eminem's greatest first week sales so far, and in fact is his best-selling album to date at over 30 million sold, but doesn't make it to the top in terms of longevity, despite being regarded as his best work to date. The album has spent a total of 171 weeks on the Billboard 200, which is around 3 years and 4 months on the chart cumulatively. But with the sales the album was able to accumulate in its initial years, it's not hard to understand why. The Marshall Mathers LP2, Eminem's first sequel album, in terms of longevity on the market, surprisingly tops the original in the United States. However, at over 10 million sold worldwide compared to the original's 30 million, this is pretty much the only ranking system where the MMLP2 tops the original. The MMLP2 has now charted for a cumulative 189 weeks on the Billboard 200. From this point onwards, we are in legendary territory in terms of longevity and relevance on the market, and Eminem is the only hip-hop artist to break into the top 20 of all time at this point. We broke down facts about Recovery in 2018, and if you're interested in that, click the link that pops up at the top right corner now. Recovery is one of Eminem's albums to crack the top 20 of all time in terms of number of weeks spent on the Billboard 200. Recovery released in 2010 and has spent a total of 320 weeks on the chart cumulatively. The album has been out for 8 years now and has spent over 75% of its time on the chart, which is quite remarkable. But do you consider Recovery to be one of his best albums? As far as studio albums go and based on the market, The Eminem Show is not only Eminem's most relevant studio album to date in terms of number of weeks on the chart, but also hip-hop's most relevant studio album, judging by the market's choice over a long period of time. The Eminem Show, despite selling over 28 million worldwide, still appears on most recent weekly sales chart in countries around the world. In the United States, it has spent a cumulative 356 weeks on the Billboard 200 and arguably serves as an initiation album for recruiting new Eminem fans around the world.
Yeah, it's my life.
Encore, Eminem's hits compilation album, is the 8th most relevant album to release in the United States ever. The album, released in December 2005, ended the year with sales of nearly 3 million sold worldwide, and in its 4th week after release, still sold over 1 million copies worldwide. So it definitely did not start slow and has spent 419 weeks on the Billboard 200. This sums up to over 8 years on the chart. In conclusion, according to the US market and based on longevity, Eminem's best albums are as follows. Number 1, Encore. 2, The Eminem Show. 3, Recovery. 4, MMLP2, 5, MMLP, 6, the Slim Shady LP, 7, Relapse, and 8, Encore. So how does this ranking compare to yours, and where will you put Kamikaze and Revival on your list? Tell us in the comment section below, and remember to check out our other videos on ETLifestyle.